Speculation over his condition has increased in the past few weeks. That is after he was hospitalized on June 14th. His office has released a photo of the senator and his wife, the former U.S. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao. McConnell says he was hospitalized after he fell and was briefly unconscious. He says he's now in a rehabilitation center to regain his strength after a mild case of pneumonia. Now, CNN did obtain video that shows an ambulance at the senator's residence. This was in June. But until now, no one knew what the emergency was. The lawmaker says he did not break any bones or have a heart attack or stroke, and a doctor's note attached to his statement also referred to his injuries as minor. McConnell has a history of health issues. He is a childhood polio survivor and suffered a concussion from another fall that was just a few years ago.
Joining me right now is Dr. Jeremy Faust. He's an assistant professor of emergency medicine at Harvard Medical School. It's very good to see you, doctor. Thank you for being here. You'd previously said, before any information had come out, that you really thought that what information was out there was quite concerning about the senator. Now he has a statement that he was hospitalized after a fall, that he lost consciousness briefly, that he developed pneumonia. The doctors, though, according to the office as it was put out, said that he had no fractures, no cardiac abnormalities, no stroke, tumor, or hemorrhage. What do you make of this now?
The problem that we have here is a mismatch between the description of what's occurred to the senator and the level of care he's needing. If his team is saying that he had a fall and a mild case of pneumonia, that doesn't really comport with somebody who's been in the hospital for almost a month now and not communicative with the public. We hear lots of different stories online and on your network about the communication, but if it's that mild, then it really wouldn't necessitate this level of care. On the other hand, if he did receive CPR, which they're not saying he did, it would be much more likely that he would need long-term care. So I'm worried that there are some missing pieces here, because falls can be devastating and pneumonia can be devastating, can cause sepsis and death, but it sounds to me like a mild case wouldn't be that. So I think that there are a lot of questions still.
Still a mismatch there on information and details is a good way of putting it. It's good to see you, Dr. Faust. Thank you so much.
Let's turn now to the ongoing absence of Senator Mitch McConnell. His office initially not saying much. They're now finally giving some more details, and they say that he fell. What can you tell us?
Exactly. They're saying that there was no significant cardiac episode, that he did not have a stroke or a seizure, and that he simply fell and also was dealing with a mild bit of pneumonia once he was in the hospital. Obviously, this had gone on for several weeks without any details about Mitch McConnell's health, and he really did address that yesterday in this statement from his saying that it's not atypical for people of his age to want to keep their health private. He said he certainly had that tendency and that inclination in deciding to keep some of his health diagnoses private himself. But he said he did recognize that he was an elected official, that people were asking questions, and that he owed it to his constituents who elected him in the state of Kentucky to make clear what his condition was. He's not returning to the Senate this week. In fact, he said that he's got some more recovery to do, but obviously that is the latest and a lot more detail than we had gotten for about a month, waiting for what was next with Mitch McConnell.
All right, Lauren Fox, thank you for the latest there from the Hill.
Senator Mitch McConnell revealed a fall sent him to the hospital after leaving him briefly unconscious. The 84-year-old stated that he did not break any bones or suffer a concussion, but that he had to also deal with a mild case of pneumonia. Now, McConnell said in a statement that he is out of the hospital in a rehab center to regain his strength. The senator also, in his statement, indirectly addressed why it took so long to share what sent him to the hospital. It said this: "You all know how folks of my generation often hesitate to share the vulnerability that comes with growing older. Even in the public eye, I feel that same instinct. I can't help it." Group chat is back. Now, a couple of us on here have worked in Congress. The Senate is like the world's oldest high school. And this didn't really seem to be a problem, right? But now that this boomer generation, and in some cases, greatest generation lawmakers are really reaching their very senior levels, you have the voter really starting to question this. I'm going to just throw up a poll. NPR PBS Marist, 8 in 10 Americans in favor of setting age caps on members of Congress.
And they're not alone. I mean, Mitt Romney, who ran for president, has also floated the necessity of having age limits on whether people run for president, run for higher office. I think that there's a real sensitivity about how old this Congress currently is.
Would people be saying this if it wasn't for Biden?
I was about to say that. I think that he's a big part of this conversation, watching his decline so publicly, the fact that he was forced to drop out of this race.
But do you think it would still come up, or
I think
just...
it would still come up,
okay.
because even before we saw the full brunt of what was going on in the Oval Office last administration, we were seeing momentum in the House specifically, where committees are led by seniority on the Democratic side. They don't vote on it like Republicans. It's whoever's served on that committee the longest, whoever's been on the Hill the longest. We were already seeing folks start to question whether that is the best way to decide who's going to be driving
Not just
your
people who
policy.
wanted their gavels.
Exactly.
Okay. You know, of the members of Congress who are 70 or older, I was looking at this list, New York Times finding 131 out of the 530. So yes, this is the oldest Congress in modern history. Also, and it's also the era of longevity. You know what I mean? Like, people are living longer and they're living healthier longer. Shouldn't this be expected?
Well, you know, I actually think that Congress can sometimes function in the American mind as a sort of black box. And so when you have issues and things like Kay Granger down in Texas, right, where she was quite literally in critical care for several weeks without people really noticing that she was gone from Congress. I think the fact that we have senators, that we have congressmen who are aging, who are, and then we don't necessarily know where they are, and then they're not necessarily forthcoming with it. I think that there's already a trust gap with Congress, and this sort of adds to that trust gap.
And also, does it contribute to the, like, they're not parents anymore, they don't know what it's like to struggle. It's not just about their wealth, of which there is a lot. It is also that they're, like, pretty far removed from some of the struggles of the average person. And in some cases, grandparents are the ones holding up the U.S. economy right now, and some of these folks don't live that life either.
Well, and I think that the feeling that, or the sensitivity or the awareness about the age of Congress is exacerbated and intensified by how narrow the margins are. So every time that there is a death or every time there is an absence, it is felt so deeply, because then it scrambles the math for everything. I mean, the House is operating, Republicans are operating with a 2-seat majority in the House. So that's why, even in the case of South Carolina, they're not looking to appoint somebody from South Carolina because they can't risk losing another body. You know, Tom Keene, the New Jersey congressman, who also had to step back, you know, understandably to deal with health issues. I mean, this is...
But didn't step back from running, and then later came out and said it was mental health issues.
Right.
But again, to your point, didn't feel the sense to throw things in question by implying he'd be out for any amount of time.
Right, and I think it all goes back to Adam's point, where some of this just makes clear to the American voters some of the real problems that come with then, once you get into Congress, you don't want to let it go.
Right, and most of us can't disappear from our jobs for weeks and months on end, much less pay for our health care. So